Okay, this is part 2. We already talked about the soil in the end of the last movie. The next test will be your white powder clear liquid. This one is going to take longer than any of them. So a lot of people like to start there because they have more time. The clear liquid white powder is a giant data table on the second page of your stuff. First thing I would do, you're trying to figure out what the clear liquid and what the white powder are. So I would just probably start with the crime scene or any of the white powders for that matter. So let's say you're going to start with lime. Oops. You're going to start with lime. So you'll come up here and you'll trade your tub for some lime. You're only allowed to have one tub at a time. Then what I would do is I'd send your evidence recorder up here to get all of the clear liquids in their tray. Now the tray holes are numbered. So what I would always do, I would put the crime scene in hole number 1. I would put 8 hydrochloric acid in 2. I would put salt water in 3, distilled water in 4, and you can get the distilled water at your own table. The peroxide in 5, the alcohol in 6, the ammonia in 7, Sprite and vinegar. I'd put them numbered, that way you know which is which. Then you'll take your powder back, and one at a time, you will put just a little pinch of the powder into the liquid and see what it does. Now, the chemical reactions can be cool, like a color change. You might want to take your tray and feel underneath and see if they get hot or cold. That's how ice packs and heat packs are made. It's a chemical reaction, and the chemicals get together and they either get hot or cold. It could be a bubble. It could be bubbling over. It could also be something simple, like the powder sinks to the bottom in a clump, or the powder sinks to the bottom in a pile. You might notice on your paper there is a code to put your chemical reactions on there. That way they don't take much space in the hole. Instead of writing out the chemical reaction, use the code. So let's say you put together crime scene powder and salt water, and the powder floats. So you'd put a 2 in there. And let's say it also gets colder. You'd put a 2 and a comma and a 7. Then you know what they are. So there's not very much room. I did forget something. When you get all your liquids in here, one of the times you do it, you might want to take the pH of all of them. And you only have to do this once, because you're going to come up and get all the liquids in your chem plate. And you can get all of the liquids are down the side, and you can just put their pH where it says pH, right in this side hole. Now, I've come and I've got lime and I've put all my chemicals in it. Hole number 5 should be your powder and distilled water. I'm sorry, it's hole number 4. Should be your powder and distilled water. So take a pH strip and test it. That would be the pH of your lime. If that doesn't, you're obviously going to want to do this with the crime scene powder. If the lime doesn't match the crime scene powder, then it's not lime. Keep doing it until you can narrow down which ones match. Obviously, the crime scene powder should have the same pH as whatever was at the scene. Narrow it down. But you're trying to identify what the clear liquid in the white powder is. So if the white powder, the crime scene white powder, behaves just like baby powder, then the crime scene powder is probably baby powder. If the crime scene liquid behaves just like isopropyl alcohol, then the crime scene liquid is probably isopropyl alcohol. If it would have the same pH and behave the same way with the different chemicals. Anyway, clean this every time. I've got a dirty scoop I need to clean, so make sure they're clean before you go on to the next thing. Okay, so fingerprint comparison. If you find that the white powder, clear liquid point to a suspect, or the dirt points to a suspect, you can come up and ask for that suspect's fingerprint. I'm going to ask you what evidence do you have against, let's say you're asking for Troxel. She happens to be the front. You're asking for Troxel's fingerprints. I'm going to ask you what evidence you have against her. Her dirt matches or whatever your thing is. So I'm going to give you Troxel's fingerprint, and I'm also going to give you a crime scene fingerprints. You're going to see if any of these fingerprints match these. You have a microscope. You can identify whether it's arch, loop, or whorl, so you don't have to look at all 10. So narrow it down, just like a policeman would do. The next one's ink chromatography. There is a ransom note left at the scene. There's a picture of it right here, and it would be on canvas for you. I have done an ink chromatography of that ink pen right here. So to do an ink chromatography, well, I'll get to that in a minute. These are hanging at each door, right by the pH things. So to do an ink chromatography, you'll come up and let's say you want to know eschews dirt. I'm going to give you one of these. You are going to put some water in a beaker, just a little bit, maybe that much, and you're going to dip this in it, just the tip of it, so that the water can raise up the paper. Once it gets past the ink piece, then put it over to dry. 5 minutes, you can read it. If it looks dry, just like this one, then the pens match. So, let's see. That's how you do the ink chromatography. And if the pens match, that means that was the pen that wrote the ransom note. And I have different pen inks from every teacher, but again, you have to have evidence to get their pen. All right, so let me scroll back to the testing, the list of tests. And all these things are said right here in your packet. Fabric comparison. There was a fiber found at the scene. If you have evidence against somebody, you can bring your tweezers up, and I will give you a fiber. Actually, you don't really need your tweezers. Bring your cup, your empty cup, and I'll put a fiber in it, and then you can look at it under the microscope. And on your paper, and by the way, fingerprints, X's, oh, this is the fingerprint thing, X's on the ones that don't match would be good. That's blood typing. Oh, and the pen down here, you just supposed to, any ink chromatographies you do, you just tape them in right here. They should already be labeled. I labeled them for you. Fiber analysis, you're going to describe the fiber, and then you're going to draw a picture of what it looks like. And when I say describe it, they're all black. But are they shiny? Are they dull? Are the ends chopped off, or do they taper? Are they curly? Are they straight? Do they bend in the middle? You know, there's all kinds of different things you can describe about the fiber. You can ask for the crime scene fiber anytime. Crime scene stuff you can have anytime. It's just somebody's personal belongings you can't, like their fiber, their blood, their pen, that sort of stuff. Let's see, blood typing. We already did some of that. Come up with your blood tray. You need to use your blood tray because you're responsible to make sure it's clean. If there's gook in it from last time, you need to even use your fingernail and scrape it out. This is not real blood. It will not hurt you. If you have evidence against Mr. Potter, come up and I will put a couple drops of Potter's blood in each one of these holes. You have to do this up here because I only have one set of these chemicals. So your evidence handler will come up and ask for the blood. I'll give them the blood. They will put 2 drops of A, anti-A, which is blue, in the A hole. Ha. They will put 2 drops of anti-B, which is yellow, in the B. And then they will put two drops of RH in the RH, and the RH is green. It says so on the label, by the way, if you don't know. Take it back to your table. That gives it 30 seconds, and read it. Anything that coagulates is positive, just like we learned in the pre-lab. And then I would clean this immediately. If you leave it all period, it leaves this white stuff that requires a fingernail to get it out. And you are not going to appreciate it if the group behind you leaves you with that mess. Okay, I think that's all the tests. So good luck. And don't forget to look at what it is you're supposed to be filling out, each person's job. And see you later.